Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect, and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Steve Wiley. Steve is the owner of Intrinsic Marketing. It's a Chicago-based marketing and web design company that works with established companies to develop a more streamlined online presence. He started working in phone sales at the age of 14, and he sold radio, print, online ads. He's done business management consulting services, vehicle fleet management, system sales, and even beverage distribution for a short time. After speaking to an unimaginable amount of business owners and executives over the years, some successful, some not, the main thing that always interested him was the story behind the business. So now he works closely with clients to get their message across in a clean and effective way. Steve Wiley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Well, we've got a little bit of your background there. You've obviously been an entrepreneur and been interested in selling things and finding out what makes people tick. And you found out that it is the story behind the business that has been the most intriguing. So tell us how that led up to get you started with Intrinsic Marketing.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, the story behind the business is the most important thing. I mean, over the years doing sales, generally more advertising and focused sales for businesses, you know, I really got a feel for people's needs, you know, and kind of like the problems that they were dealing with. And over the years, because I started when I was really young, so it was kind of really the main thing that I've always done, was kind of honing my skills to connect with people, learning what makes them tick, learning from some of the mistakes that they've made, you know, with other type of marketing. Because when you sell advertising to people, you know, they tell you a lot, you know, a lot of times. I mean, they'll tell you what they've done before and why it didn't work, or, you know, why they're interested in what you're doing or why they're not. And, you know, those things are really, really interesting if you dig down deep enough. So, you know, over the years doing phone sales, and then, you know, I started in radio. Obviously, radio is kind of a dying thing nowadays. We're doing podcasts right now, and that's the future, or the present. But, you know, over the years, I transitioned more into the digital stuff. You know, we actually, I worked for a family company that was doing radio, and what we did is we brought the company into kind of a digital space. When they first started, they were working out of phone books, making phone calls, and by the time I ended up leaving, they all had computers and, you know, lists and you know, CRMs and all that stuff. So that's you know, kind of you know, the transition that got me to deciding, hey, you know, what I'm doing here, I could do on my own, you know, and using all those skills, all those conversations and all that background knowledge, different industries and different personality types. I feel like I have a good feel for the client. So that's when, you know, if we cut to a few years ago, you know, that's when I decided, okay, let's take the show on the road and, you know, open something new. So that's what Intrinsic Marketing is, and that's my company. So we do, like you said in the intro there, web design and digital marketing, digital media, and also consulting, you know, just general consulting. I like to tell people we're their offsite marketing department. So that's kind of the story behind that and where we started.
Yeah, and that's, you know, so much the case nowadays. I think we're in 2019 now, and it's all about innovation and, you know, moving forward and having those ideas that, you know, like Uber and Airbnb and things like this, they're really changing the marketplace to where these old companies, if they're not adapting, they're going out of business. Companies that we've known for decades.
Absolutely.
If they're not keeping up with stuff. So very important, even in the radio industry, you got to move forward into the digital industry and find out exactly what's working now and what's going to be relevant in the future. So, speaking of those kinds of things, what kind of clients are you working with these days in order to implement some of this stuff?
So I work with a pretty wide range of customers. When we first started, just because I had a lot of background with contractors and service type of companies, we really got a foundation working with heating and air, general contractors and things like that starting out. And then we branched out into more bars and restaurants. So, bars, restaurants, building websites for them. And we do a little bit of everything now. I do real estate companies and, a lot of businesses in real estate and insurance and all that stuff. They have a lot of third-party things they need to connect with. So it's not as easy as, just putting together something that looks nice. It has to work. It has to function. So those are the type of clients that I deal with now. It's generally somebody that's been in business for a while. Like you said, yeah, you got to bring their business into the 21st century. I'll talk to people, especially a lot of contractors that have been around for 20, 30 years. And what they were doing before with yellow pages and all that stuff, it used to work. But nowadays, that doesn't work so well. And it costs a lot because all those companies are trying to stay above the dirt too. So, we kind of transition those companies into companies that can compete with new companies. I tell people that have been in business, 20 years or so in construction, you obviously know what you're doing. You've been in business this long, but the fact of the matter is the guy that opened, 2 weeks ago and has a really great website and has all of his ducks lined up digitally, he's going to be taking all those jobs away from you because it's about first impressions online nowadays. It's not as much about asking your friend, hey, do you have a recommendation? It's a Google search nowadays. So those are the type of clients that we deal with.
Right. And, the clients that you mentioned there, the contractors, real estate, insurance, things like that, these are kind of commodity businesses. What differentiates one from another and how do you get that story out of them?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And the difference is really the connection with the client and the ability to answer the client's questions in a very clear and honest way. A lot of companies, they think that, just putting a bunch of prices up there and, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to make it happen. That's not the case. Everybody has a website nowadays. Some websites are good. Some websites are bad. The difference between a bad and a good website isn't necessarily appearance. It's about the quality of the content. So, you could have 5 websites of similar companies lined up side by side, and only one of those websites will be one that actually converts to actual customers. So what we do is we really get a good understanding of the business owner's personality. I ask a question that's pretty straightforward. In a perfect world, what service would you want to do all day long if you could only do one thing? And that really tells a lot. It tells a lot about the mindset of the customer, what their goals are, because, a lot of these companies, they only really want to do a couple things, but they have 1,000 different things that they're willing to do because they think that, okay, well, if there's more options, then I'll have a better chance of getting more people to say, let's do it. But that's not the case. So with contractors in particular, it's about, presentation, showing people what you've done in the past, and obviously demonstrating a very kind of put together process, so it's like as simple as, okay, here's the information that you're looking for in a clear way. It's not too wordy. It's not jumbled up. It's not 10 pages in. And that generally works best. But I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of rambled there.
Yeah. Now, it seems to me that you really want to kind of niche down or specialize in one area of what you're really good at and become really successful in that, rather than going broad and being a generalist. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you go to a restaurant and there's 1,000 things on the menu, chances are those 1,000 things aren't really going to be so good, because, if you're focusing on a million different things all the time, you don't really put as much effort into everything as much as if you go to a restaurant that has 5 things. Those 5 things are probably damn good. So it kind of goes with everything. I mean, that's just a rule of life. You gotta focus.
And then, of course, you get known for doing those things very well. And once you're known for that, what can that kind of branding do for your business?
Well, I mean, especially in digital marketing, it's a keyword-based thing. So it's based on searches. And if you're known for specific things, other people will talk about it. You'll have mentions online. People will recommend it. There'll be, if you're more of a general type of business, then you're not going to really get as much traffic for as you would if you really, really were a specialist in just a few key things. So that's really important to understand that, more options aren't necessarily as effective as, just really, really drilling down on a couple main points.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, talk to me, Steve, about the story behind the business. How do you get people to tell that story, and how does it help sell them and actually, close more deals for them?
The story about my business or the story about their business?
Just about their business, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the story behind the business is, obviously, people are ADHD nowadays, so you don't want to write a novel. It's important to have an about page. It's about, kind of the people behind the business as opposed to just what you do. People kind of like to know that a little bit, but that should be fairly short. The connection. I guess I don't know exactly what you mean. Can you clarify the question a little better for me?
Yeah, it was just like the story behind your business. I know you put a lot of importance on that story. I'm just asking what the purpose of the story is and how it helps to actually, help the bottom line and actually lead to sales.
Well, so people are more willing to say yes to somebody they like. So, you have a really short period of time when somebody comes on your website or, hears about you and they search online, look at your reviews. If they like what they hear, if they like that you are a family guy or you're a vet or, whatever that it factor is, the wow factor is, if they like that story, chances are that they'll give you a little bit more time than they would if it was just a straight sales pitch. And obviously with any sales pitch or, any type of transaction, you want to keep people coming back. You want people to recommend, hey, I know this guy. You should call him. He's a nice guy or a nice gal. That's what really translates to dollars. It's the customer service part of it. If you can get somebody in the door or get somebody on your site and you end up doing work for them, it's that repeat customer. And it's that good feeling that the customer gets working with you. There's a difference. Sometimes you could really do a good job, but you didn't have that customer service. So, you might not get a review. There's a lot of things that kind of translate to dollars, getting good reviews, getting referrals, things like that. So that story behind the business is what really makes that possible.
And it really all comes back to the old adage of know, like, and trust.
Absolutely.
People have got to know you. They've got to find out about you. You've got to have a relationship with them, and you've got to like them. But ultimately, when they trust you, they're going to buy from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, going back a few years in sales, I've had, especially with radio in particular, I've had customers that would actually get approached with the same thing from competitors at a much lower price. And they have turned them down because they say, you know what, I like working with you, and that's a big deal. It's about, if you go to an auto mechanic, maybe the prices are higher and they do, the same job that another guy would do, but you've been dealing with that person. You trust them. Maybe their family. Maybe, you have been dealing with them for 5 or 10 years. Are you going to really go and, it's kind of like cheating on them, so right. You're not going to do that. And that's a huge factor in business. And it's not as easy as it used to be because there are so many options. So, when you have that little opportunity online to connect with somebody, you got to do your best to really make that relationship stick, because otherwise, there's no trust, there's no loyalty, most importantly.
So what mediums do you use to capture that story and share it with the people out there that are looking?
Well, social media is amazing for that. Obviously, social media isn't equal for every business type, just because, it's kind of hard to get things across when you are doing widgets and things like that. But, obviously the website is the foundation of anything. So having a nice pictures, having kind of a biography of the business itself and maybe the staff, that's a good touch. It definitely helps. But I would say social media is the best way to really connect with people and tell a story. If you can get listeners, or not listeners, but if you can get people that are following you and subscribing to the stuff that you're putting out, maybe they're not necessarily going to buy a new roof from you every year because it doesn't work that way, but they're more inclined to tell other people. So that's a really, really positive thing about social media. And that's why it's really important, if you do have a good website, to really utilize social media to bring that traffic to the part on your website that will tell your story. And another thing is loyalty things, loyalty rewards, every now and then, sometimes maybe reaching out and, just asking them, hey, how are you? I haven't heard from you in a while. How are you? That type of stuff goes a long way. So, it really depends on the business. So obviously every business is different, but those little things, those little touches really, really make a big difference.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're familiar with Frank Kern. He's been around the digital marketing world for many years. One of his things is, there's only about 3% of your audience that are ready to buy now. Right. And that's the 3% that most people are going after with, the SEO and the pay-per-click and, trying to get that message in front of those people right away. Mm-hmm. But there's another much, much larger percentage that might be ready to buy in the next, 3, 6, 12, 18 months. And Absolutely. When you change to concentrate on those people by sharing your story and, developing that relationship with people, it can completely change your business. And I think that's where the story part really comes in, just sharing with people what you can do for them.
Oh, yeah. And you hit it on the head. I mean, it's not so, with AdWords and paid advertising, you can spend a lot of money for, and break even or maybe even lose. It's very, very possible. That short game, it could pay off in the short term, but it's the long game. It's the constant name recognition. One of the things that I always used to tell people, especially with just straight ads, is, do you really think McDonald's needs to spend millions and millions of dollars to tell people that they have cheeseburgers? No, of course not. Of course not. Everybody knows McDonald's has cheeseburgers. The reason they do it is because of the repetition and, keeping that little earworm, on people's minds. If you do that, and you keep going with that and you keep putting things out there regularly, what's going to happen is not just the 3% will buy, but all those other people, when they decide it's time that they're going to need whatever service that you have to offer, you know what? They're going to remember your name, and that's what they're going to search for. A lot of times more than not, and that's really when you're doing something at a high level. So, that's one of the things that a lot of people in business kind of overlook. They think that if I'm putting X amount of dollars or X amount of time into something, I should get these returns off of it. And sometimes something you did last year is why you got a client, and you don't know. You don't know that. And so and a lot of times there's no way to really tell, because if you're doing it right, you're doing it in a lot of places all the time. So, it could be a multitude of things. And, one of the things that kind of is a problem in the marketing space and advertising space is, when people ask, so where did you hear about us? A lot of times, if you really do good marketing, they don't know where they heard about you. They just know they heard about you, and that's the main thing. It's that name recognition, that name dropping, and, just the consistency. So that's the most important thing. And that's what we focus on. We focus on the long game and not necessarily the short-term stuff.
I think that is a big problem for most businesses, is that consistency, whether they have a team in place to do their marketing, or they actually have a marketing plan that they're implementing. It seems that, many companies are just jumping from one idea to the next without really following through long term,
right,
with any particular one. Do you see that, and do you do advisory or strategy sessions with your clients?
Absolutely. So that's where the consulting comes in, and the consulting is not necessarily even just telling them what to do. It's picking their brain and seeing where their mindset is. Like I was saying before, a lot of times people don't know how to track results. And a business owner is really just focused on results. I mean, why wouldn't you be? The fact of the matter is, any marketer, any advertiser knows that there's no guarantees in anything. So the only guarantee that you can give somebody is that you're going to consistently put something out if they are willing to, give you the budget that you need to get things done. So what we do is we work closely with people and explain why we're doing things. I think it's really important a lot of times for people to understand that not all clients are the same. Some clients are terrible. Some clients are just a time suck, and what's going to happen is you'll never satisfy them. So we get that stuff out of the way, and that's why we don't take on every client. I have a meeting with every customer or potential customer before we even take a dollar or commit to anything, so I can kind of get a feel for their mindset. If somebody's thinking that, okay, I'm going to give X amount of money, and I should get these results right here and there, then that's not the client for me, because it's not going to be satisfactory for that client, because things just don't work that way. And it's not going to be satisfactory for us, because it's going to be a lot of work getting things set up. And then, they could just say, hey, we're pulling the plug before any results even come in, because everything takes time. So, that's kind of how I operate.
Yeah, not all money is good money.
No.
You want to work with those ideal clients, like you said at the start. Finding out what you're happiest doing and being able to fill that, and be happy about it is what you're looking for. All right, Steve. Well, talk to me about some of the successes that you've had with working with these clients. What were you able to do for them? What did that mean for their business? And, how did it change things?
Well, so there's a couple things that, are really, really, visible, that stand out for customers. And that's, having landing pages on websites, like for instance, like a real estate or a roofing company or something like that wants somebody to reach out and tell them what they want, get a quote, things like that. So what we've done for several different companies is put together forms on their website that will be marketed out on social media and actually bring real customers in. So there's a lot of tools, email campaigns and things like that a lot of people do. We don't really do that as much. I think that what we have done success-wise is been able to tailor budgets for people that use their existing things. So like a website, a really, really well-made contact form that's marketed out correctly. I've seen customers go from, when we're doing just like web design and hosting for them, getting maybe like one contact form submission in like a month. And then we go in, we start doing social, we optimize their website, and we see multiple requests coming in every day. And that's happened several times, multiple times, and, in different industries. So in that sense, what we're doing is obviously working with that. That's really what it comes down to. I like to tell customers that, if you have to work twice as hard for your website, then there's something wrong. You want your website to be working for you constantly. It never goes to sleep. You don't have to pay it. And, if you can kind of solve people's problems and get them ready to buy, sending a message, looking for a service, then that's a mission accomplished. And that's really, really the main part of what we do. A lot of that comes with, blog posting. And creating a buzz around companies and kind of giving them some sort of voice. And that goes back to what I was saying before. But those are the success stories. Those are the main success stories. Other things, just generally getting reviews because, there's a spot on a website for, hey, leave us a review. Revamping somebody's website is really the most powerful thing. Having it be mobile friendly, having it be optimized well enough to where people can find you. So those are the success stories. Obviously, that translates to dollars when you're getting actual responses, inbound stuff. So, those are the type of things that we really, really focus on. And then when I say with social, it doesn't necessarily mean getting likes and things like that. It means getting engagement. So, like Instagram, for instance, people think, oh, well, he has 1 million followers or he has, 10,000 followers. That's great. But for a small company, is that realistic? Probably not. So really what it comes down to is just putting things in the right place so you actually get engagement, get contacts. And, that always comes back to the website. So that's what we focus on.
Definitely. Well, that's great stuff. It's all about the bottom line, but building relationships is definitely the way to go about building a long-term business and not just one for today. Well, sure. Steve Wiley from Intrinsic Marketing in Chicago. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, if you want to find out more, you can visit us online at intrinsic chicago.com. You can just Google Intrinsic Marketing. Or you can find us on Facebook. That's probably the best place, or also Twitter, but I don't really mess with Twitter so much. Best place is really just online, intrinsicchicago.com. You can give us a call, 312-869-4117. And like I was saying before, you can send us a message through the website. But yeah.
Excellent stuff, Steve. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for sharing your knowledge of what is working now. And, like I said, telling that business story is really effective in getting people to know, like, and trust you and take action. So figure out how to implement that with Steve and Intrinsic. Steve, thanks very much for being my guest on the Trust Factor Radio today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.